Good morning and welcome to the Tuesday, January 4th edition of the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known, the one-year anniversary of the Black Press's daily news and information program. Of course, it's the 195th year of the Black Press of America. On Sunday, Tampa Bay Bucks wide receiver Antonio Brown tossed his jersey and shoulder pads toward the bench, threw his gloves and undershirt into the stands, and ran off the field bare-chested in New Jersey, waving a peace out sign to the fans in the end zone while Tom Brady huddled the offense for an important play. Following his strange outburst Sunday, Antonio Brown was cut from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But the question is whether the team and the league attempted to show the young star any compassion. Did they consider at all or care about at all his mental health? We discussed this morning with Dr. Tammy Wilborn of the Wilborn Clinical Services, LLC, and Faye McCray of Healthline Media. But first, let's tackle the news headlines with publisher Bobby Henry of the West Side Gazette and publisher Cheryl Smith of the Texas Metro News and iMessenger Media. Good morning, Bobby and Cheryl.
Good morning. Good morning.
I think we're having some technical difficulties with Bobby. So, Cheryl, we're going to jump right into the headlines this morning. Democrats are planning for Nancy Pelosi's expected exit from House leadership, with Hakeem Jeffries seen as favored to lead the caucus, according to a new report. When Democrats regained control of the House in 2018, 16 party members signed a letter expressing opposition to Nancy Pelosi's ascension to the speakership. At that point, Speaker Pelosi had led the House Democratic Caucus since 2003 and had previously served as Speaker from 2007 to 2011. And despite the pushback, she still had broad support from most members. So, Cheryl, they're looking at Hakeem Jeffries out of New York to take over the speakership of the House, or at least the leadership of the Democrats in the House. Your thoughts on that?
Well, first we have to look at this isn't the first time that she has had opposition and being in a leadership role. And it's important to note that we're talking about Representative Jeffries, and we're talking about people touted Pelosi as raising money, good at raising money and being cool under pressure. But people are also talking about age. They're talking about youth, passing it towards giving folks an opportunity to serve. The one thing that I would be concerned about with anything, when we look at the turmoil going on in the Democratic Party in terms of them eating their own, fighting one another, and not being able to galvanize the troops, there's going to have to be a come to reckoning meeting of the Democrats, that they're going to have to start putting their money where their mouth is, and they're going to have to start supporting and being a little bit more assertive. I'm going to say assertive, but I really mean aggressive in dealing with the issues and dealing with Republicans, because Republicans are going to do what they want to do, and Democrats are still playing nice.
Yeah.
And nice is not getting us anywhere.
And we'll see where this heads. Also in the news this morning, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration amended its emergency use authorization for the Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine to expand the use of a single booster dose to include use in individuals from 12 to 15. The agency announced in a news release that they also would shorten the time between the completion of primary vaccination of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine and a booster dose to at least 5 months. Additionally, the FDA, Cheryl Smith, said it would allow for a third primary series dose for certain immunocompromised children ages 5 to 11. So with this new Omicron variant and cases exploding everywhere, the FDA is moving fast to try and get everyone possible vaccinated.
Well, but this doesn't help, Stacey. This does not help, because you already have people saying they'll come up, they're looking at it as a moneymaker, and they're saying in a few months there'll be another shot. So when we're out there trying to tell people, advocate for getting the vaccine based on science, we're running up against opposition because of that. And then also here in Texas, you have daycare centers that are telling the parents, you can't bring your child. I don't care how old your child is if they have not had the test. They want them tested, and I'm talking about 2 years old, a year old. And so, what happens to these parents, and what will a vaccine do? I'm a part of the Black COVID task force in Dallas, and it's under the leadership of one of our Dallas City Council members, Casey Thomas. And I keep telling him and the committee, we can't let up on this virus, because even when the numbers go down, we still have so many who are not vaccinated, who haven't been tested. And we have a serious problem with people that are saying, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this. I'm not going to take the vaccine. I've tried all kind of ways. I've asked people who smoke cigarettes, if we put it in your cigarette, I mean, if we put it in your blunt, will you smoke it? Because they are bucking the system. So we have some issues, and I hope that the government could wrap its head around it and come up with a better way of educating our people, because we keep sending out this double messages that say it's working, it's not working, it's working, it's not working, here's something else. And you're talking to a population that is already leery of vaccines, of shots of any kind.
Exactly. And Cheryl, from civil rights to space rights, that's the model of NMPA President and CEO Dr. Benjamin Chavis, who will take the next step into the celestial spaces when he interviews the famous Sofia the robot at the inaugural Tech with Soul virtual conference today. The interview will take place at 8 p.m. Eastern time. The conference starts at 3 p.m. Eastern. Folks, it should be very interesting. Last time Sofia the robot was interviewed, I believe the only other time she was interviewed was by Jimmy Kimmel. So we should look for that later today. And to register for that conference, just send an email to events@techthisout, TECH this out.news. Dr. Chavis will be interviewing Sofia the robot. He's always doing things, Cheryl and Bobby, for the Black press, for the advancement of the Black press. And he keeps talking about, if they're going to space, we're going to space.
Well, I think it'll be really substantive coming from him. He won't be trying for the punchline or a joke. And we need to be on the forefront. And we're going to talk later about just how we're disenfranchised across every platform. So I'm glad that Dr. Chavis is going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for joining us again, Bobby Henry of the West Side Gazette. We see you had some technical difficulties there.
Right. I could have used Dr. Chavis and Sophie the robot just a few minutes ago. I hate I missed the prelude into this, and I do apologize. But Cheryl, as you have said, we've been disenfranchised on several fronts, and I don't want to be like that old TV show Lost in Space. You know, I want to be caught up. I don't want to be Will Smith and where's the robot. I want to know what's happening. So I commend Dr. Chavis on this and just look forward to it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And today, the discussion really centers on athletes and mental health. Olympic gymnast Simone Biles and tennis star Naomi Osaka recently dropped out of the world's top competitions. They cited concerns about their mental health. But we saw something really, really sad on Sunday. Antonio Brown, the 33-year-old superstar from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, ran off the field. He took his shirt off. He took his gloves off. He tossed them into the stands. This was right in the middle of a critical play that his team was running. Immediately, the team, they kicked him off the team. There was no discussion. But Antonio Brown has had moments before. And so what comes to mind is the mental health. And I'm sorry to discuss that along with Bobby and Cheryl, Dr. Tammy Wilborn of the Wilborn Clinical Services LLC, and Faye McCray of Healthline Media. Good morning, Dr. Wilborn and Faye McCray.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining. Let's start with our guests. First, Dr. Wilborn, your initial reaction when you either saw or heard the news about the football player Antonio Brown and what happened at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey 2 days ago.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me on. You know, as a clinician, my initial reaction was one of curiosity, right? Which is one I think that if I can encourage all of us to be is to be curious about what do we see? You know, what was really going on with Antonio Brown and um, you know, showing some compassion regardless of whatever it was that we thought was going on. So I would say my initial reaction was curiosity and sort of wondering, you know, like many, is it mental health, is it personality, could it be both, could it be all that and other things? So curiosity and then I would say compassion.
Yeah, and it seems like there was very little compassion from the Tampa Bay Bucks. But before we get into that, let's bring on the president and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Dr. Benjamin Chavis Jr. Dr. Chavis, good morning.
Good morning to everyone, and on behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, and let me say also on behalf of the Chavis family, I want to thank everybody who've extended their expressions of condolences to our family. We appreciate it. Well, we in Oxford, North Carolina now. I have two funerals this week. One, Mary Alice Thatch, one of our distinguished publishers, publisher of the Wilmington Journal on Wednesday, and then my sister, Dr. Helen Chavis, author, on Saturday. But the Black press has to continue every day, and we're so thankful for Let It Be Known. And I especially want to thank all the publishers and our guests of this morning's show.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dr. Chavis. And I want to go to Faye McCray of Healthline Media. Faye, so the initial reaction, the immediate reaction, I should say, from the team was him. There was no discussion. In fact, reports and photos show Antonio Brown outside of MetLife Stadium after the game with his suitcase packed, looking for a ride. And the New Jersey State Troopers, who generally, when there's an athlete of that caliber, seeking a ride or seeking an escort, usually jump to it and do so. They refused him an escort out of the complex there. They just left him hanging, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I'm surprised by that. You know, well, it's speculative to say what caused what happened with Antonio. We can say that his teammates, you know, Tom Brady in particular, spoke out, and there are some concerns about him, whether or not it's mental health or physical health. You know, but what often comes with issues like this is the judgment, right? Because we think professional athletes, they make a lot of money. You know, they should be able to handle the thing come after them. So, you know, I wasn't surprised by the lack of sympathy. There's a lot of stigma around these issues, especially when we're speaking to mental health.
Yeah, and Harry Edwards, who is well known in NFL, and actually he's a consultant or a confidant of the former San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick. He made this comment, which I thought was really interesting, about specifically about Black athletes. He says, we're in a space where as Black people, either you are invisible and you are silenced in a space, or you are rendered superhuman, which also gives this notion of invincibility, that we don't have pain, we don't have emotion. Cheryl, I know you mentioned you were pissed when you saw the situation with Antonio Brown. What do you make of that comment there by Harry Edwards?
Well, I think that comment is so accurate, and it just takes me back to a conversation I had with many of you may remember the legend Bob Hayes at the table one day talking, and he talked about his physical pain. And he was saying it was so painful. And I think our athletes are expected to be superhuman, and they are expected to do as folks have encouraged them, especially during this time of social unrest and discourse. They're expected to be silent and do whatever their job is supposed to be. When they're putting up with something that is very prevalent, and especially that's why I still take a knee in the NFL. And so the comment is very accurate, and I'm very frustrated because excuses are always made for other folks. but
Mhm.
Black folks don't get a chance. And then sadly, some Black folks become a part of the problem because they take on the ways of others and immediately look for the negative aspect of it. I think, this is an atrocity, and I just hate to see us continue to be treated like animals.
Well, this is a special burden that Black athletes do bear, unfortunately. Bobby, just to
Yeah.
go along with that,
Okay.
Bobby Henry of the West Side Gazette, Akila Carter Francique, who is also a specialist in the world, in the clinical world there. She also added to Harry Edwards' comment, and here's what she had to say. She says, it's a devaluation of their humanity between the economic demands of a sport, the fear of Black advancement in the white mainstream, the aspiration of Black society that are placed upon the shoulders of athletes. That's a lot that the white athlete doesn't have to deal with. Bobby, your thoughts on Cheryl's comment and that comment as well?
Yeah. I got to go back a little bit. Yeah, I once applauded the Buccaneers for all of their diversity. I mean, they had what I thought was the correct platform. You had Black coordinators, you had Black this, you had Black that. Now all of a sudden, you one of your premier players is experiencing something that's out of the abnormal, and you kick him to the curb immediately. So that sends off a time bomb in my head is that you didn't care in the first place. You were just putting up a front just to appease people. And now that this mental explosion has happened, you don't want to come to the rescue. You want to go back to what you originally were, and that was just for the money game. So I'm changing my whole outlook on Tampa and the way they are using diversity. And I agree with what Cheryl says. Sometimes it is us that have brought into this scheme of things. What do they call it when you assimilate? And the assimilation has caused you to look at your own in a different perspective. So I am thoroughly disgusted in how they have treated, Brother Brown. Yeah, he has some issues, and we all do. But to kick him to the curb without any any say so, any bring in, and let's talk about it. No.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Wilborn, let me ask you this, Dr. Wilborn, because this is not the first episode from Antonio Brown. We've seen the mental episodes with him in the past, at least on 3 other occasions, reportedly at least on 3 other occasions, including when he was with the New England Patriots. It seems like they bring him in, he performs, and then when he gets overwhelmed or something triggers him, it's all, it's over.
Yeah. I want to just sort of extend the conversation that we've been having because, at the core of what we're talking about is this issue of stereotypes, right? Race and gender stereotypes and the ways in which stereotypes of Black people affect how we are perceived and how we're treated. And unfortunately, when we're talking about Black pain is often minimized, scrutinized, and when it's on display, it's penalized. And I think that one of the things that is concerning, is if Antonio Brown's refusal to continue to play in the game was a result of his awareness of his own pain and therefore his need to kind of advocate for himself, the fact that the team didn't respect and honor his own concerns, I think reflects a larger issue of, again, how black folks and Black pain tends to be minimized. And, of course, the story is still sort of unfolding. But one of the things that I found myself saying is if Antonio Brown refused to play because he was hurting and didn't want to cause further hurt for himself, then good for him, right? Good for him for recognizing his own worth and not buying into the dollar signs that oftentimes gets dangled for Black people to keep us in pain and keep us in suffering.
Yeah, it's a great point too, because many may know that the National Football League does not operate exactly like Major League Baseball and the National Basketball Association, in that the players' contracts are mostly not guaranteed. So Antonio Brown leaving the team means that Antonio Brown will not be paid. If he was in Major League Baseball, they would have to pay out that contract. But aside from that, the most important thing, Faye McCray, is, of course, the mental well-being of Antonio Brown. And we saw earlier, well, not early this year, we're in a new year now, but last year, we saw Simone Biles be criticized when she skipped some of the events in the Olympics, right, because of a mental health break. We saw Naomi Osaka, the tennis star, she was actually fined by the Tennis Association for not speaking to the media for the first few matches of a tournament, because she said she needed a mental health break. So are we taking seriously the mental health of these athletes?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly, as the editor-in-chief of a mental health publication, am, ecstatic that these conversations are coming to the forefront. But I mean, that's a big question. I mean, the idea of Black people owing people our bodies is not new, right? We know that it's rooted in racism. We know that it's rooted in misogyny. And the idea that these athletes speak out and are condemned in a lot of ways shouldn't be a surprise to us. So whether it's prioritizing the mental health of athletes or acknowledging that Black lives matter, the sports industry has been behind the ball in confronting the humanity of our athletes. And the question is, are we going to demand as consumers of these sports that they rise to the challenge?
Yeah, Cheryl, and it's an initial reaction from folks on social media. Of course, social media can be brutal. But even inside the stadium, they actually, the fans actually cheered as Antonio Brown ran off the field. He ran into the end zone. I mean, it was really shocking. It was stunning to see this at that point in the game, that this happened. And it did not seem to dawn on anyone the seriousness of this young man. And again, it's well documented, the mental health issues that he's had. But folks actually laughed at him.
And that's what they do with us, because they expect one thing from us, and long as we're entertaining them, they are happy. And that is why we as a Black press have to come out and speak forcefully on the issue, because just like Black lives matter, Black minds matter. And we have to say something about it, and we have to change the narrative and have experts like we have on today to talk about mental health. Folks, athletes have to play. That's all folks want them to do, is play. Comedians have to make folks laugh. That's all. They don't want them to do anything else when they're Black. When you're of another persuasion, you can do whatever you want to. But when we are Black, we are there for one thing and one thing only. And, it's really sad. I'm very frustrated because we don't get the chances that others get, and we need to start holding people accountable. And I know there are people, I know my family, I'm from Florida, my family's from Florida, and they would come to Texas to see the Tampa play the Cowboys. They wouldn't even come see me. They just go to the game because they love Tampa so much. And I know, I visited the stadium with former Tampa Bay Buccaneer Doug Williams. And we talked about what was going on. You look at what happened with even him, and because he spoke out. And I mean, the NFL is racist, and I'm calling it what it is. And I'm saying that any sport, all the sports, when I look and I have the benefit of in Dallas, Texas, seeing some of the changes that are being made with the Dallas Mavericks under the leadership of St. Marshall, and with the support of Mark Cuban, and they're addressing some of the issues. And I'm just going to tell you that these other folks need to be held accountable, but we can't expect to break it in 1 year or 5 years. But guess what? We'll never break it if we don't start getting them to come into line and to recognize we're human beings and we can do whatever we want to. They're shaking in their boots right now because young Black men are going to HBCUs now and saying we're going to play for them. So we need to be, now more than ever, we need to be vocal about this and support our athletes, support our professionals, support our people.
Dr. Wilborn, I know you haven't spoken with Antonio Brown, but what would be the first thing you'd say to him if he sat down with you?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing that I would probably say to him if he sat down with me is, thank you for investing in yourself and your wellness, and tell me what you think is going on with you. Because again, I think when a lot of these situations are put forth in the media, there's a narrative that gets sort of created and crafted and then perpetuated, which influences, again, how we're seen and how we're treated. But from a clinical standpoint, as a clinician, I'm curious to know, what do you say about what's happening to you or what you are doing? And further, what do you want to be different, right? What needs to be different for you? Because, again, at the end of the day, one of the things I don't think we realize when it comes to mental health is, and athletes, is that mental health is the hidden opponent for athletes. 35% of elite professionals are dealing with mental health conditions. 1 in 5 adults in the United States are dealing with mental health conditions. So mental health is a serious issue. And I would acknowledge if, again, if that's something that is contributing to the behaviors we see in Antonio Brown, then there is help available for him and whoever else is dealing with this issue.
Yeah, and Ms. McCray, I know with Healthline, you, like you said, you've covered a lot of this. Healthline Media, you've covered a lot of this. Where do we go? What's the next steps here as far as covering it? We can't speak for the health community. I mean, Dr. Wilborn does a great job of that. She just told us how she would present it, but covering it. Where do we go from here, Faye McCray?
Yeah, I mean, I think we continue to highlight these issues. I mean, so much of getting these conversations to the forefront is breaking the stigma. And breaking the stigma is people like Antonio Brown speaking out about what they're struggling with, and Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka and Michael Phelps. I know he spoke about being suicidal after the Olympics. So, I thought as long as we're continuing to have these conversations, we're having them without judgment and we're having them with resources so that people know how to get the help that they need. I think that's a positive step in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Just want to lift up a comment from Angela Connolly, actually 2 comments. First of all, our condolences to Angela. She says she laid her father to rest yesterday and still awaiting the results of his COVID test. And she also mentions that when white people have mental health issues, they are embraced. Dr. Chavis, I know that you want to give a closing thought on this, so I'm going to turn to you now.
Well, thank you, Stacey. I would characterize it as an opening thought, because I think this discussion has to continue. I reflect back on behalf of the Black press of America to 1968, the Mexico Olympics, when John Collis and Thomas Smith raised their fist. People thought that they were crazy. Well, the reason why they raised their fist is because America was crazy. Racism is a mental condition. White supremacy is a mental condition. And I think, yes, we have to deal with the mental health of Black America, but the mental health of Black America is impacted by the mental health of white America. This is the case in apartheid in South Africa. Apartheid was a serious mental white supremacist regime that needed to be replaced by compassionate, caring, and accountable brothers and sisters. And that's what happened. That has not happened here in the United States. This is January the 4th. 2 days will be the first anniversary of January the 6th. What we saw on January the 6th last year here in the nation's capital was a mental breakdown of white supremacy attacking the capital of the United States. So I just want to make sure we put what happened and what may be going on with Antonio Brown in a broader context. Do we have serious issues in our community? Absolutely. But we also live in a society that has not come to grips with its own status as having mental health challenges based on our history, based on our economics, and based on our future. I think our athletes, our entertainers, all those in the public view have to also make sure that they protect themselves, protect their public health. And I like what Cheryl Smith said, that not only Black lives matter, but Black minds matter.
Yeah, one of our viewers, Sean Gilstrap, also writes, Black minds matter. Paris Brown of the Baltimore Times writes, we must continue this discussion and rally behind our athletes as a Black community. So we certainly will continue this discussion. We really appreciate Dr. Tammy, Dr. Wilborn, Dr. Wilborn. We keep saying your name all different ways, right, Dr. Wilborn?
That's okay. We're going to get it right.
We really appreciate you, your input. Certainly appreciate Faye McCray and Healthline Media. We certainly would love to have you guys back to further this discussion. And don't forget, our Midwinter Conference is coming right up in Florida. Bobby Henry of the West Side Gazette is the host. The conference kicks off on January the 19th at the Diplomat Beach Resort in Hollywood through the 22nd, where the theme is the publishing industry, advancing the Black press of America, reaffirming, engaging, and empowering. Visit www.nmpa/events.com to register and reserve a hotel room. The NMPA is adhering to strict COVID safety protocols. So feel free to join us. And again, this evening, Dr. Chavis has a very, very special interview with, as we said earlier, Sofia, the robot. Dr. Chavis, we're all looking forward to that this evening at 8 p.m. Eastern time.
Well, thank you. It's probably going to be therapeutic for me to interview a being that may not be programmed for the historic prejudice and racism that so many of our brothers and sisters. So on behalf of the Black press, yes, I'm gonna have this dialogue with Sofia the robot.
Sofia the robot. The only other time Sofia the robot was interviewed, I believe, Dr. Chavis, was with Jimmy Kimmel.
Jimmy Kimmel and 37 million people looked at it, and then Will Smith attempted to kiss her, and 47 million people reacted. So it's a global. It's going to be a global interview on behalf of the Black press. I'm so proud that the Chinese government actually, she was built by brothers and sisters in Hong Kong, and this is going to be a global engagement about the future, because what we, even on this program, what happened to Antonio Brown is in the context of the existential reality today. What we need to also shape is the future. Where are we heading? Dr. King said it best. Are we going to have community? Are we going to have a beloved community? Are we going to have chaos? Where do we go from here? We have an opportunity to shape the future. And that's what the dialogue is going to be about this evening at 8 o'clock Eastern time on global networks all over the world.
Well, stay tuned. And Dr. Wilborn and Ms. McCray, we ask that you just hang out as we close. Just hang out a few minutes. Our producer would love to wrap up with you guys, have a closing talk with you guys before you leave. So thank you all for joining us. We will see you tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.